All right, hello again, Fighting Irish fans. Welcome back to Football Fridays at the Eck, presented by Guinness. My name is Chris Palmquist, and on behalf of the entire Notre Dame Alumni Association, welcome back home this weekend. Before I welcome our next guest for catching up with, I want to invite all of you to check out everything we have to offer here at Football Fridays. First off, behind the patio back there, stop by our photo booth, snap a picture with some Notre Dame gear. Right next door, be sure you join the ND Gives 20 campaign and help us recognize our veterans on this 20th anniversary of 9/11. Right behind me, across the street, be sure to stop in the brand new Alumni and Friends Pavilion. Extra seating, music, beer, and wine for purchase for our guests ages 21 and over. Here on the Football Friday stage, though, I'm excited to invite one of the great running backs in Fighting Irish history. At over 2,000 yards in his career, he was a captain his senior season, and a proud graduate of the class of 1995. Please help me welcome Lee Becton to the stage. You do need that. All right. So, Lee, it's been about 2 years since we've done Football Fridays here at the Eck in person. I know you were at the game last week in Tallahassee, but how's it feel to be back on campus and going to a game in Notre Dame Stadium?
You know, it's been a long time since we've had a game here, and there's nothing like the atmosphere of Notre Dame. It's a special place, seeing all the fans and, you know, everyone getting ready for another Irish victory. It just once again brings back those goosebumps, that excitement for Notre Dame football.
I want to go back to your high school days before you came to Notre Dame. You come from North Carolina originally. What was your recruiting process like? What was it about the University of Notre Dame that was the right fit for you?
Wow, my recruiting visit was kind of interesting. I got here in December, so I'm a kid from eastern North Carolina where I think I've heard it was going to snow once. And I come here in December, and it was ridiculously cold. And, you know, that didn't bother me as much, but it was when I saw Rocket Ishmael like sprint down the field, and then I saw Chris George hit somebody. I was like, oh, I can't play here. But, you know, then the most important thing that happened was I had a late flight, and I went to La Fortune. And the GA at the time asked me, he was like, what do you want to do? And I said, you know what? Just leave me here by myself. Let me sit here and just absorb what Notre Dame is about. And seeing the interaction of the student body with each other and that family atmosphere was the reason that I came to Notre Dame.
You mentioned some of those guys that you shared a locker room with during your time here. You also joined a running back room that might be one of the most loaded, not just in Notre Dame history, but in college football history. Jerome Bettis, Reggie Brooks, Tony Brooks, Dorsey Levens for a little bit before he left?
No, he had just left.
He had just left. So what was that experience like? Were you overwhelmed to join a group like that? Were you excited to show what you could do?
It was a little overwhelming, but we were such a very close-knit group of guys that all the other older guys were taking you under their wings and showing you, you know, the right way to do things, the right way to train, the right way to practice. And so there was no, oh, I think I should be on the field or anything like that. It was more, let me learn.
All the guys who played for Coach Holtz in that era always have some sort of story from practice or a locker room. What's yours?
Wow, there's so many of them. So this is a good one. We were on a Tuesday. It was full pads, and it had rained a little bit. And so I go out for a pass. Now, mind you, I'm a freshman, and I'm down there with the number one offense. So I go out for this pass, and Rick throws the pass to me, and he kind of threw it a little bit behind me, and I threw one hand back to try to grab it and drop the ball. Coach Holtz goes bananas. You know, why is this freshman on my field? All of this stuff. So I'm petrified. I'm ready to leave. I'm like, this ain't for me. So remember what I said, how the upperclassmen, they would rally around you. So they grabbed me and said, nope, you can't leave. This is his way of seeing if you're going to get back in there. So I did. I get back in the huddle, and a run play was called. I was like, perfect. I can't screw this up. Coach Holt sees me in the huddle, and he comes back, and he says, hold on. 324 Tony, which was the previous play, and he goes and tells the defense, I want you to run the same coverage. So I know the ball is coming to me, and it was wet. Rick throws it to me again. I slip, I fall. And of course, I didn't catch the pass. So this time I actually had to leave practice. So that was probably one of the, it may sound like a bad thing, but it was a good thing because the next day in practice, I got back in there and Coach Holtz couldn't have been more supportive.
I don't know how true this is, and you can tell me this. Did you or did you not walk around campus with a football in your hand for a couple of years?
That is true. I had fumbled a couple times in practice, and fumbling is just something you don't do. So I just grabbed the ball, and guys would come around and try to knock it out of my hand and different things like that.
So it worked out well for you and for the Fighting Irish fans as you grew into just one of 16 Irish running backs to crack the 2,000-yard mark at that time. What changed over your career that made you feel so comfortable and become so effective on the ground?
It always starts with having a very good offensive line, and one of the things that we always did was we made sure that we studied what the offensive line was doing. I had a great supporting cast with my fullback, and we just started to gel really well. The confidence that the coaches gave in me and their belief in me also just propelled me to do my best.
Last year, when you were kind enough to join us for a digital Football Fridays, we're so much better to have you here in person, by the way. We talked a lot about the game of the century in 1993 against Florida State. Of course, that was right before the Irish and the Seminoles faced off last year. To the outsider, that seems like it's probably the most iconic game in your career. Would you agree or would you disagree?
I would say it was, from an iconic standpoint, it was probably the most iconic game. But that was definitely the most iconic game. But of course, the most memorable game is there's two. There's the first one when you walk out the tunnel, and then the first time you actually touch the field.
I want to talk a little bit about Florida State. Last week, you were down in Tallahassee at Doak Campbell watching that game. What stood out to you as an alum who knows the game as well as you do?
I really I liked all our aggressiveness on offense. We really pushed the ball downfield, which we hadn't done for several years. It was definitely good to see that. We started doing more of getting the ball to our playmakers in space. Our running backs that have got some speed and that wiggle that you look for. We did a great job of getting the ball to them in space, and our defense played aggressive for the majority of the game. So I'm very encouraged at how we played and very excited for the season to come. It was hot out there and it was humid, so you could see it looked to me like some of the fatigue setting in, but that's just a part of the game.
As a running back, I think a lot of people expected Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree and the offensive line to really have their way with a Florida State defense that they did last year. They ran for 300 yards against them last year. They really struggled on the ground. What sort of adjustments can they make to get that going?
Well, I think they're just going to put a little bit more emphasis on it. As much as you want to definitely get those running backs the ball out in space, at some point in time you just got to be able to sit, look at the guy right in front of you and say, I'm going to win that matchup. And that's if you want an effective running game, that's how you create that.
I want to leave a little bit of time for some fan questions here. So if you have some for Lee, be thinking about them. We'll open up the floor in just a few minutes. But wrapping back to your Notre Dame career, your senior year, I mentioned you were named a captain. What did that mean to you?
That meant everything. To be named a captain at Notre Dame, that's just such a tremendous honor because it's not something that's bestowed upon a lot of people. It meant that my teammates believed in me and believed in the leadership that I could bring to the team. So it was one of the best honors that I could have received.
at the time, you also had said that your greatest accomplishment would be graduating from Notre Dame. Here we are 26 years later. Does that still hold true?
That is still one of the greatest, but also having my daughter graduate from here as well is another one.
I could see where that's a little bit better. Congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about post-graduation life. You gave the NFL a shot. You had some injuries that kept you from really playing the game, but you weren't done playing sports. People here who might not know, you actually went to Australia and played rugby. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what that experience was like.
Yeah, that's someone should have told me better before I went did that. It's the game is literally, so there's two types of rugby, and the one I played was league, and it's literally like being on a kickoff without pads for an entire game. And if you don't know how to run the proper way and read angles, it's a rough game. But I enjoyed it. I was in the best shape I'd ever been in, just because you play both sides of the ball. You play offense, you play defense. But it was great. Sydney, awesome city. I enjoyed it 2 years until once again an injury, tore my shoulder, and then I was like, you know what? I got a Notre Dame degree. I could probably use that right now.
Exactly, 4 for 40. So that's a perfect segue into the last question that I have for you. What have you been doing since that time? Tell us what Lee Becton's been up to since graduation.
Yeah, so I'm a mortgage lender out in Arizona. I've been, since school, I've been mainly in the sales realm, and now, like I said, I do mortgage lending out in Arizona, lend in 47 states. So travel. I'm back here a lot. Follow Notre Dame. This is just as much as my passion as anything else.
And what year did your daughter graduate?
2017.
Awesome. Congratulations on that again. Now, Joanne has a microphone around here. If anybody has a question for Lee, right up here in front, we'll open it up.
What was the favorite touchdown you scored at Notre Dame?
That would have been, let's see. I would say the USC game. It was a 72-yarder. That one was most important because, growing up in North Carolina, my family, friends did not get here as much as I'd like. And that particular game, my mom, all my high school coaches, and everybody happened to be at the game.
Favorite touchdown as well. I was going to tell you 72, right off Aaron Taylor, left side,
Yep.
all the way down, first play of the game. Awesome. My question for you, what's your take on the whole name, image, and likeness, and how you think that's going to affect college football generally?
I think there's some aspects of it that are needed and that are good. But I think that we potentially could be rushing something that there needs to be a lot more thought process on how to implement and go about making sure that this is done in the proper way. The most important aspect of going to college and playing football for me was the ability to get my education paid for. That doesn't mean that being able to capitalize on my image wouldn't have been important, but it needs to just be done in the right way. And my own personal opinion is that there needs to be more thought process into how this is actually going to be implemented.
Let me ask you on that name, image, likeness question. The offensive line here has a deal with Mission Barbecue. They get some free barbecue. If Lee Becton was playing today, what partnership would you want to be part of?
Girly Leap.
Get a nice new car. All right.
Yeah.
We've got a question right here in the front.
Hi, our daughter was on campus for the game of the century. My husband, class of '69, we were supposed to be there, but because of a family thing, we watched it at home in New York and screamed and yelled and went nuts. We got the chance to come back the following week for the BC game. Unfortunately, we were there when we watched the field goal at the end. I know how we felt. How did you guys feel?
Wow. There's all those different emotions of grief that you go through, and I think we felt all of them. It was one first disbelief. We fought so hard to get back into that game and take the lead. With like a minute and 8 seconds on the clock after being down by 21 with 8 minutes and 7 seconds on the clock. So it's so you go from this big high to then just getting this huge disappointment and disbelief of what just occurred. So it was tough, But one of the things we knew we had to do is we couldn't dwell on that for too long because we still knew we had one more game to play, and that's the only thing that we focused on going forward.
When you played against Florida State, did you ever get a touchdown in that game?
I did get a touchdown in that game. It was right out the left side. I think that put us up by 21 or something like that. So I did. It was a great play.
All right, Lee, before we let you go here today, we really appreciate your time. You got any prediction for the game tomorrow against a tough MAC team, the Toledo Rockets?
Well, thanks for having me as well. I think we are definitely going to win the game. I think it'll be somewhere in the realm of 42-10.
Lock it in.
You heard
All
it
right.
here first.
Everybody help me give Lee Becton a thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me.